Good morning, Scott here, known as Cantaloupe to some online, and I'm bringing a video to you on a subject that's interesting to me. It might be of interest to you or someone you know. It is a Sunday morning, late in December 2025, almost 2026 now, and I want to talk about something that is very interesting to me. Having just come from the Catholic Church, and I'm not a registered Catholic, I don't affiliate necessarily with any church or denomination, but it got me thinking, the service got me thinking about something that is true, but just being true, unfortunately, isn't enough to appeal to a lot of people, if you know what I mean. Especially, I hate to say it, but certain Christian fundamentalists, for example, and just Christians in general, they don't like talking too much about inconvenient truths. And with that in mind, I'm going to jump right in. So the inconvenient truth I'm referring to here is that Christianity, the whole story of Christ, is not super extraordinary when you look at it. It is a tale of justice. This isn't going to be a long video. I'm going to get right to the point. It is a tale of justice, and what I mean by it's not super extraordinary, it's very common actually. It happens every day. This story happens every day, and it is a story of group prosecution. It is a story of someone refusing to settle for injustice, and it's kind of that simple when you look at it. It's Christ had, a bag of truth. He was doling it out, and at the time, that was in very short supply. Answers, honest answers especially, were extremely appealing and valuable. People had an appetite for them, and also in Christ's time, there was a great deal of discussion about God that had nothing to do with Jesus per se. That was going on long before he got there. Just saying, everybody was talking about God. There were tons of temples and churches and people being spiritual already. So it makes sense that the rhetoric that we get from his time is going to be, influenced and biased by that rhetoric. So with that in mind, here's the thing. The commonness of Jesus's story doesn't subtract from his message. It doesn't subtract from the value of the gospel, going to church, being spiritual. Quite the contrary, actually. To set things straight, let me explain what I mean by it was somebody's refusal to settle for injustice. The question of justice may be boring to you. Just on the surface, it might sound dry and kind of uninteresting, but I assure you, if you have ever received injustice, you start caring pretty quickly about it. You start caring about taking the fall for your neighbor, for example, just, as an aside. So consider if you're in class, right? You're in school, and the teacher punishes the whole class because a handful of people are speaking out of turn. Very real, easy to understand example, happens every day. How do you feel at that point when the teacher punishes the whole class because a handful of people have spoken out of turn? You feel like maybe you didn't deserve it, right? You feel like there was a tragedy or a travesty of justice. Okay, this is the exact same story. It's the exact same story. So Jesus was the kid who did not want his friends who were behaving themselves to take the fall for the ones who weren't. And you'll see also in history, not just in his time, but all throughout human history, every single administration starts getting more and more lax about how they group prosecute. Group prosecution is anti-justice. To fail to do your research, your investigation, to establish probable cause, and to actually identify who did it. And it's not always easy. Here's the problem. It's not always easy or cheap to figure out who did it. So governments, administrators, policymakers, managers, anybody with authority will be tempted, if not actually, just prosecute everybody. It's much simpler that way. And that is the story of Jesus Christ. He said, you cannot prosecute my people. I will not stand for it. He was the one guy who refused to settle for injustice. So he said, look, if you have to take somebody, you can take me. That's what he said. And his people remembered him in that instance. They were grateful. They said, we are going to remember and commemorate our boy who took one for the team. Because that's what happened. But it was nothing extraordinary. It was nothing out of the ordinary. In fact, there are Jesuses unsung all around you. Saints, there are good people who are doing the right thing, who take the fall for someone else's sins, who die for someone else's sins, figuratively being the word. every day, all day. And I personally, I'm a big fan of Jesus. Honestly, no sarcasm, no irony. I'm also a fan of the saints and the everyday unsung heroes who are also taking one for the team. The people who pay their dues, the people who refuse to settle for group prosecution, the people who speak the truth and pay the price for speaking the truth, because they are no less important. And in fact, if there were none of them, you wouldn't even have a church to go to at this point. So something to keep in mind: the ordinariness and the commonness and the perhaps undeservedness of singling out a single person for the good behavior of a lot of people. Keep it real. Reach out with questions or comments to whitehotrobot@gmail.com. Thank you.